All right, hello everybody. So we have another video of a debt payoff simulation as a doctor. Now, if you weren't aware, I've had people in prestigious professions like law, accounting, federal government work email me or comment on the channel telling me how much they love it. I've had that happen before, but I've never had a doctor review this or leave a comment. In fact, I actually emailed my cousin who's a doctor. She's a doctor in Florida and her husband's a doctor, and then they never responded to that email. So hopefully, I will get a comment from a doctor who's reviewed this material and let me know what you think. Right? And if you know any doctors, share it to them because share the material and let them know if this debt payoff strategy resonates with them because it's resonated with other professions, but I've never, with doctors, it's a cricket response, and I'm curious to know what they think. So, anyways, what are we going to do today? We're just going to do the same thing that we always do, which is debt payoff scenarios. So, assuming that we are a doctor and we make $13,000 of income after tax and we have $13,000 of expenses and we have leftover checking and savings zero because we have so much debt. Look at this, it's all this debt. 10 credit cards, an auto loan, a student loan, and mortgage. So this auto loan might actually be a little bit cheaper than expected because we're a modest practical doctor who does not need a Mercedes after graduation. But we got a pretty decent house, 430,000, and look at that loan. That loan is a kind of a big kind of a big one. And then on top of that, we have personal expenses that are $3,000 a month that we always have to pay for. So the way that we think of these expenses not tied to debt is the amount that we have to pay in order for us to just live. So even if all of our debt were wiped out, we'd still have to pay this, right? And so what we're going to do here is with this method that we called the velocity debt payoff method, kind of long, right? We used to have another word for it before the folks at the state government of Illinois decided that they're going to crack down on that term so we don't use it anymore. With this method, we're going to assume that we have the same income, okay, and the same expenses. And then what we're going to do is still not save money, but the difference between the left column and the right column is in the left column, we're very unintentional about saving money. Whereas in the right column, we're actually being very intentional about not saving money, right? And there's a huge difference, right? Huge difference in the outcome between the left and the right. And then what we're going to do is focus on our something called we call cash flow. And so the way that we kind of philosophically think about banking is different from the left column and the right column. So in the average doctor banking column, the checking or savings account is seen as the final destination of your money, whereas with this method, the line of credit is seen as the final destination of our money, right? So what we consider to be cash flow is just the amount that our debt gets reduced, whereas in traditional banking, your cash flow is what is left over after you pay your bills, right? So think about a rental property. Your cash flow is considered to be income minus expenses minus debt, right? And then whatever's left over in your checking account, your cash flow. Here, just a little bit different conceptually. Okay? And then not only that, we're going to assume that we have access to a line of credit. So what's a line of credit? It's basically a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. Okay, what a line of credit is. And we're going to assume we have access to a $200,000 8% home equity line of credit. And the cool thing about this line of credit is that you can go to a bank's website, click a button, and they'll just dump money into your checking account in an instant, right? They'll just do it in an instant. And so that's true for most banks, not all of them, just depending on how they've structured things. You might have to wait or delay a day or two. No, actually, no, that's not true. Maybe the balance will update it'll be delayed by a day or so. But yeah, and here's the thing we're going to assume that this line of credit is actually free and clear, like there's no balance on it. Now, let's be realistic, okay? If you have 13 grand as your paycheck and then 13 grand expenses and $0 left over, will the bank give you a free and clear line of credit? The answer to that is pretty much no, because banks don't lend money to people who need it. Banks don't lend money to people who need it. See, if you're a bank and you see a person who needs money, you just run away because Based on what risk mitigation, risk profiling, people who need money don't pay you back. That's why banks don't lend money to people who need it. Now, why do we demonstrate with the free and clear line of credit? It's just because it makes the demonstration so much easier. And if you want to see a more realistic scenario where people have maxed out everything, 22 debts, $4 left over, that's what the 99-cent YouTube membership is for. Okay, that's what the 99-cent YouTube membership is for. So you want access to that? Go ahead and click it. I purposely put it behind a paywall, purposely, just to see who's the most dedicated of them all to give me 99 cents a month. Okay, all right. So now let's go ahead and pay off debt. So this is just done from a previous demonstration. So if you want to know the order which we pay off debt, we use something called the cash flow index. So what is a cash flow index? It's basically the debt amount divided by the monthly payment. Debt amount divided by the monthly payment, and then just gives us a ranking system, right? So the ranking system, and you might be wondering how is it ranking the debt? It's based on the ratio of, and we look at the formula, debt amount over the payment. So what does that mean? It really tells you the bang for your buck when you pay off the debt or transfer the debt to a line of credit. Okay, so for example, this mortgage is the last one we want to pay off. And why is that? It's because I have to give a huge sum of money to the bank to only get $2,000 of cash flow. $430,000 of debt for only $2,000 cash flow, right? Whereas we could just pay these two credit cards off, which is about $65,000 for more than $2,000 of cash flow. So why wouldn't I pay these off first, then the mortgage, right? And then so that's how we're going to do it. And how much credit card debt is this? I'm pretty sure it's 167 or 4. I got to sum it up. So let's go ahead and sum it up. 12, 15. Let's go sum it up. And that's $164,000 of credit card debt. So let me just go ahead and show you the power of just a simple debt transfer. $164,000 of credit card debt into an 8% line of credit. And we're going to do this. Okay. Bam. Okay. This 13 grand still to say this stayed the same, but we literally went from zero to over $5,000 of cash flow, right? And I really want to see like the doctor's face when they see this video, if it's baloney or not, right? Is it baloney? I don't know, but yeah. And sometimes I wonder that, like I'm making these videos, and it's like this is probably one of the most mind blowing things I've seen. That you go from zero to over 5,000 without making more money, and then you do these videos so many times, and then you don't see people like reacting to it or being curious, and it's just like they saw a ghost and they walk away. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. And then the final step is you put your entire paycheck as an overpayment to the line, and then take your expenses out, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. So that's what we're gonna do today, and then we just want to show how this is done. So what we do is, if we want to get the next month's balance, is based on the previous month's balance, previous month's interest minus the cash flow, which is 5160.71. And then if you want to know how to get the interest, it's based on the average daily balance multiplied by the interest rate, and then you divide it by 12, right? Because the interest rate's always quoted annually, and you want to get the monthly rate, which you get by 12. And then what we do is, let me just kind of show you here. So we start from the very beginning. I'm going to wipe this all out. Okay. So I'm going to go back here. So all we got to do is copy and paste because it's going down by that 5,000. And let's take a look. And then we see that in month 36, this was all paid off, right? Month 36, it was all paid off. Okay. So 36 months. And it'll be 167K. Okay. And then I'm going to do that. And then we have 3 more loans. So that was easy, paying off the credit card debt. And then in 36 months, okay. Whoopsie, I screwed up here, didn't I? I'm going to copy this and this. And you know what? I probably have to redo this. So let me just redo this quickly. And if you want to know how I set up all these situations and how I know the monthly payments and all the other good stuff, it's because I got this calculator thing right here, right? And then so it's month 36, 36, 36. And then we see that this is the current balances of these loans. So, some of people might be focused on, we should focus on paying off the student loan first because it's a 7% interest rate, right? But, we're going to follow the cash flow index where we pay off the 9 grand to get about 400 and then apply that to the next loan and then apply that to the next loan based on the cash flow index. So interest rate does matter. I mean, it does indirect, especially with amortized loans, it's an indirect correlation to the payment. With credit cards, it's a direct correlation because the interest is always going to be a percentage of the payment is always going to be a percentage of the balance. But with amortized fixed loans, it's not. Plus 9197.3. Okay, and then what we're going to do here is that this is going to be zero, this auto loan, right? And then we're going to keep paying off the auto loan and increase our cash flow. All right, so let's go ahead and pay off the auto loan, and then we'll just go back here. And what's our cash flow right now? It's about 5,500. Okay, and then what we'll do is we're going to just do this, and then update this here, 5,500. And I don't really even think it matters because it's just going to pay off in 2 months anyways. So 5556.02, bam, bam, right? So we slightly lowered the interest that we paid for 1 month. Okay, so 38 months, we paid off. So 167 plus 22, 189. And then now we got the student loan and the mortgage. So in 38 months, let's see what's the balance of all that. So 3838, okay. And then now we have the student loan, and then we also have the mortgage, right? So I think it's pretty safe to move that 7% student loan into an 8% line of credit, given that the cash flow index is kind of above 50. But you got to be careful about this huge cash flow index number, because think about what it means. It means you're giving lots of money for a little bit of cash flow, right? And so we'll talk about this a little bit later, but especially with the 30-year mortgage, and if there's an interest rate difference, you're gonna end up paying a lot more than you have to when you move the whole thing into a line of credit. And there are people on the internet who always talk about this, where it's like you should always replace a loan with the line of credit, and the answer to that is no. You have to be a little bit thoughtful about this, but I think it's okay to move this one into a line of credit, even though we'll slightly probably overpay. So let me go ahead and do this, and I'm going to go ahead and Control B plus 166,103.35. And then now, what's our cash flow? Well, basically, this student loan goes to zero, and then now our cash flow is over 8 grand. Okay, and I'm going to copy and paste, and then we 8110.4, and then I'm going to copy and paste, and then we'll see that in month 60, student loan is paid off. Okay, so let me just write that right here. So 60 months, and then be 189. Oopsie, 189 plus 220. So it's 409K. Okay, and then now we just go to month 60. Okay, and we have two options here at this point. So our mortgage is our very last debt, right? And so the default option is just making extra payments. And if this is your only loan and you could just put $8,000 a month as an extra payment, it's perfectly fine, right? Now, a lot of times, you might have to think about, well, how do we get from here to here, right? So this is kind of a philosophical angle. The way that a bank makes money is to make sure that you have too many debts where you're insured to make minimum payments on everything. So what they call this is the segregation of income. Income comes in, gets split all over the place, and whatever's left over, in this case is nothing, is going to be in the checking and savings, right? And so how we got from here to here is basically doing the opposite of that and making sure our money is in one place. Okay. Now, when it's your 30-year mortgage and it's the very last debt that you have, that's not a problem of overpaying it. But if we want to kind of, let's say, keep our seatbelt on, metaphorically, then we can still use a line of credit. Now, I know that the vast majority of people will never overpay a loan, even though they know that's the default option, right? Because if people actually did that, how many people do you know who would say like, I'm actually uh, mortgage free because I overpaid it? They know they can overpay, they just don't do it because inconvenience stops people from doing things. And there are companies out there who really spend a lot of money and time. Like let's say when you're at a checkout counter in a shopping cart, like online, to figure out like what's the easiest way for you to click the shopping cart checkout button without any friction, because they know the moment you have friction you're not going to do it. And that's essentially what paying off a loan or overpaying a loan is, right? You pay, let's say, this whole entire cash flow, extra payment to the loan. Okay, well, what if I need the money back? Then you're going to use credit cards and lines of credit as backup, and then you're going to go back to segregating your income. See, like, and now I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying that's what happens with most people, especially if they're not intentional about paying off debt. But that's one way you can do it. And hey, if the default option works for you, go for it, right? Another way that you can do it is just by using something called sweeping, right? You just take up a piece of loan, move it into a line of credit, and you just do it over and over again. And the reason why this is so simple, I'll tell you why, is because there's very little thinking involved. Your checking account, like the only thing you're thinking about, oh, my checking account goes to zero, and then my line of credit goes to zero, and rinse and repeat over and over again, right? Whereas with extra payments, you literally have to decide how much you have to send, and that's a struggle for most people, right? It's actually a struggle for most people. So let me just kind of show you how the sweeping thing works. And we used to call it chunking, but I want to come up with a better name, so I'll come up with the better name. So let's say, okay, we move 16 grand of the loan into the line of credit, right? So let me just kind of say 16,000 of the loan plus 16000 into the line of credit, and then you see that in 2 months it pays off, right? So you just kind of rinse and repeat over and over again, and you can kind of say, wow, this gets paid off really quickly. And the most important thing about this, right, is not whether you're using a loan or a line of credit. It's, are you paying off the debt in the right order? That's literally what it comes down to. Okay, so if you want to see this calculator that we have that shows you, hey, even if you're using like an 8 to 15 to 30% line of credit, and obviously you should use the lowest interest rate tool that you can find. But my point is, don't be so afraid of higher interest rates as long as you follow the debt payoff order, right? So let me just do this. So 430,000. And then what's the payment amount, which is 2052.89, 2052.89. And then what's the current balance? The current balance is 388,924.31, so 388,924.31. And then, okay, so let me just do this. So 16,000. And then we're a doctor. So right now the doctor's income is 13,163.29. So 13,163.29. And then what's our expenses? It's about $3,000 a month. So I'll just do this. So it's the expenses is everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off, right? Because that's included here. And then so now what we do is let's say, hey, this is an 8% line of credit. Uh, you know, if we were going to make the minimum payment for the rest of the 30 years time frame, then this is what you would pay. But because we're paying it off early, even if you use an 8% line of credit, okay, you're paying 29 grand in interest. Now, let's say that we couldn't get an 8% line of credit. Oh my goodness, interest rate almost doubled, right? So you know how people freak out about 6 to 7%, 7 to 8%, OMG, right? So let's say you use 15. Oh, we pay 2 grand more. Okay. And then we'll do 30%, right? So it's 5 grand more, right? So obviously interest rate does matter. But the way that I kind of think about this is that sometimes it pays, you can pay a little bit more for convenience. No, I don't pay too much for convenience, right? But just a little bit more. If it's like a dollar or two extra in or one, in this case, $1,000 extra, if we go from 8 to 15 and we can find the eight, oh well, okay, I get it, right? We don't want, we'd rather have the eight or the 7 or the 6%. But if we can't, then we have a tool that allows us to easily overpay our debts, right? That's just how I think about it. Everything's about trade-offs. There's no 100% ideal solution, okay? So if you want to do it that way, or you just do extra payments. Some people just say, hey, extra payments is easier, right? And if it is, then why doesn't everybody do it? Okay. And I guarantee it's not because they're investing in the market. I don't think they are, but who knows? I might be wrong. All right, well that's it for today, folks. So let me actually get this 3.5 number here. So this will be 0. 60 divided by 12 plus 3.5. Oh, I can't even type. So 60. And then so that's 8.5 years. We're debt free, right? So we just got to keep making videos until one doctor responds, and then I'll just stop making doctor videos because I'll be honest, I'm actually sick of doing this and having no doctor respond. But we'll see. Okay, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.